There was a box in my grandmother's attic that no one was allowed to open. It sat in the far corner, behind dusty suitcases and furniture no one remembered owning. A wooden box, dark and worn, with a brass latch and no name. The first time I saw it, I was 7. I asked what was inside. She smiled, that kind of tight-lipped smile adults use when they don't want to lie but also don't want to tell the truth. "It's nothing important," she said. "Then why is it locked?" "Because not everything needs to be opened, sweetheart." I never forgot that box, or the way she always changed the subject after I mentioned it. Years passed. I left for college, then came back when she got sick. My parents were already gone by then. A car accident when I was 20. I was her only grandchild. There wasn't much of a choice. I moved back to the house I grew up in, took care of her through the quiet months, and then she was gone too. She left the house to me. The will was short, 1 page. But tucked inside was something strange. A key. No explanation. Just a brass key in a plain envelope with my name on it. No label. No letter. Just the key. I knew exactly what it opened. I didn't touch it for weeks. I left the box alone. I told myself it was probably just old documents or photos. Something private, but ordinary. But deep down, I knew it wasn't ordinary. One evening, in the middle of a thunderstorm, I finally went up to the attic. The house was quiet in that heavy way old homes get during storms, like it was listening. I sat in front of the box for a long time. The brass key felt cold in my hand, like it had been waiting. When I turned it, the latch clicked louder than I expected. And what I found inside didn't make sense. At least, not yet. The box wasn't packed with documents or letters, like I expected. It was organized. Inside were 6 smaller items, each wrapped in cloth. Deliberate. Neat. Like someone had taken their time arranging them just so. The first thing I unwrapped was a photograph. It was black and white. A group of people standing in front of a car, a man in uniform, a woman with her hand on his shoulder, and a child holding something in her lap. There was something off about the picture. Not in how it looked, but in how familiar it felt. The child looked like me. No, not just like me. Almost exactly like me. Same eyes. Same face shape. Same faint birthmark near the left temple. It stopped me cold. But the back of the photo made it worse. In neat handwriting. Cedar Falls, 1978. That was 2 years before I was born. I sat there for a long time, staring at it, trying to come up with any rational explanation. A cousin? A great-aunt? Some strange coincidence? Maybe I was just seeing what I wanted to see. But I knew my family tree. I'd mapped it out in high school for a class project. No one in our family ever lived in Cedar Falls. And no one in 1978 could have possibly had a child that looked that much like me. I opened the second item. A small leather-bound notebook. No name on the front. Inside, pages and pages of numbers. Names I didn't recognize. Locations. Dates. Every few pages, there was a hand-drawn symbol. It looked like a circle broken into 4 pieces, each with a dot in the corner. None of it made sense. The third item was worse. A birth certificate. But it wasn't mine. It had my first name. My actual first name. But the last name was different. So was the birth year, 1979, not 1980 like my real one. And in the section for mother's name, there was someone I had never heard of. Someone I had definitely never met. I closed the box. I went downstairs. And for the first time in a long while, I felt something I couldn't name. Not fear, exactly. Something deeper. Like the ground under everything I thought I knew had started to shift. And I had no idea how far it would fall. I couldn't sleep that night. I left the box in the attic, but the photo, the notebook, and the birth certificate stayed on the kitchen table. I kept glancing at them between sips of cold coffee, as if they'd move on their own if I looked away long enough. By morning, I decided to stop guessing. I drove to the county clerk's office. The real one, not the online portal. I wanted paper. Signatures. Something real I could touch. I handed the clerk the old birth certificate and asked if she could help verify it. She squinted at it. "This isn't one of ours," she said. "Are you sure? The formatting's wrong. Look here, the seal's in the wrong place. This is either a very old version, or it's been altered." "Altered?" "Yeah," she said, tapping a section lightly. "See this discoloration around the mother's name? That doesn't happen unless someone changed the type." I left with more questions than answers. Back home, I went looking for every document I had, my own birth certificate, my social security card, my old medical records. And that's when I noticed something strange. Everything I had from before age 5? It was photocopied. Not original. I had no original documents from the first 5 years of my life. No baby photos either. None of my parents' old albums. I had asked once as a kid, and my mom, or the woman I thought was my mom, just said they were lost in a move. But that never sat right with me. And now it sat even less right. That night, I went back to the attic. I brought the box down. I unwrapped the fourth item. It was a cassette tape. No label. No case. Just the tape itself, carefully wrapped in blue fabric. I didn't even own a cassette player anymore. But something told me this tape mattered. I drove across town to a thrift store that still sold old electronics. Bought a dusty player for $10. Took it home. Slid the tape in. A woman's voice crackled through. Not my grandmother's. Not anyone I recognized. If you're hearing this, I guess you found the box. Which means they didn't burn it like they said they would. Good. Because if you're listening, then maybe it's finally time someone knew the truth. She paused. Your name isn't what you think it is. The tape hissed. Then the woman's voice returned, calm, steady, like she had rehearsed every word. Your name was Emma Whitlow. You were born in Cedar Falls in 1979. I was there the night you were taken. Taken. The word sat heavy. I stopped the tape, stood up, paced the room, and sat back down. Then I hit play again. They said it was for your own good, that your mother wasn't well. But I knew her. I knew how much she loved you. I watched her fall apart when you were gone. She filed reports. She called every number. She went to the press. No one listened. And then she disappeared. The woman's voice cracked for the first time. I think she was forced out. Or worse. That's why I kept this box. If I ever had the chance, I wanted someone to know it wasn't just a story. You were real. She was real. She didn't say her own name. She didn't say who had taken me or why. But what she said next was worse. The woman who raised you. She wasn't involved. Not at first. I think she was just someone they could control. Or maybe someone who agreed to pretend. But your grandmother, the one who kept this box, I think she knew. I think she always knew. And maybe that's why she left this for you. Maybe she was trying to make something right before it was too late. The tape stopped. I sat in silence for a long time. I wasn't angry. I wasn't even afraid. Not yet. I was numb in that way your hands go numb in cold water, where you don't feel the hurt until after you pull them out. I needed answers. I drove to the county records building in Cedar Falls. It took half a day, but I found something. An archived newspaper clipping from 1980. Local woman pleads for help locating missing daughter. Below the headline, a photo. The woman in the picture was young, eyes tired, holding a photo. And the child in the photo she was holding? Me. Same face. Same eyes. Same birthmark. The article didn't say much. Her name was Rachel Whitlow. No leads. No arrest. No follow-up. Just a sentence at the end. Authorities have no reason to suspect foul play. That's it. That's all it said. Like I had vanished into thin air. And somehow, they made sure no one ever looked too hard. I drove home from Cedar Falls with the article on the seat beside me. My fingers were still trembling from holding it. From seeing that woman's eyes. My mother's eyes. If that's who she really was. I stopped calling the woman who raised me Mom in my head. It happened quietly, like a door clicking shut in another room. That night, I tried asking her questions. Carefully. Do you remember anything about the year I was born? She looked up from her crossword, her eyes slow to adjust. Not much. Why? I found some old papers in the attic. From before we moved. A pause. That attic's full of junk. Don't go digging in there too deep. Then she smiled, like it was a joke. But her voice was too sharp around the edges. Was I adopted? I asked, keeping my tone flat. She blinked once. Of course not. What kind of question is that? I didn't push. But something in the room had changed. She wasn't just uncomfortable. She was alert. Watchful. Like someone who realized their story had cracks and was suddenly afraid the light would get in. The next morning, I called a friend, an old roommate from college who now worked at a legal aid nonprofit. I didn't say much, just asked if she knew anyone who could help request sealed adoption records. She promised to look into it. That afternoon, I opened the fifth item from the box. It was a key. No label. No explanation. Just a small brass key on a black string. I held it in my palm for a long time. Too plain for a house. Too specific for a locker. Something old, judging by the weight. I started calling storage companies in the Cedar Falls area, asking if they had any records from the early 80s. Most said no. One receptionist asked why I was interested. I didn't have a good answer. That evening, I searched the attic again. I don't know what I was looking for, maybe something that would make it all make sense. Instead, I found a second box. Smaller. Locked. And the key fit perfectly. Inside was only one thing. A sealed envelope. On the front, in thin blue ink. If she ever asks. The handwriting wasn't familiar. I held the envelope in my hand for nearly 10 minutes before opening it. Inside was a letter. 5 pages long. The first sentence? I wasn't supposed to keep you. The handwriting was small, precise. It reminded me of the way my grandmother used to write grocery lists, organized, careful, almost cold. But this letter wasn't cold. It was something else. It was haunted. I wasn't supposed to keep you. I was supposed to deliver you to someone else, someone who paid for the paperwork, the hospital, everything. It was supposed to be clean, like it never happened. The writer never signed their name. Never used my name either. But then I saw you. You were small. Quiet. You looked up at me like you already knew none of this was going to make sense. I told myself I was saving you. But I wasn't. I was covering up something I didn't have the courage to stop. The letter went on, unraveling things I never asked for. A woman, Rachel Whitlow, was trying to leave a relationship. There were threats. Money disappeared. People stopped answering her calls. She had a baby. She reached out to someone she trusted for help, a woman named Lillian. My grandmother. Lillian didn't help her escape. She helped make her disappear. Rachel trusted me. She thought I would take you somewhere safe. She never asked questions. She thought I was the kind of woman who would do the right thing. And maybe I was, once. But then a man showed up. Clean shoes. Empty smile. Said this would all be handled. That you'd be placed in a better home. That Rachel wouldn't remember a thing. I didn't ask how. I didn't ask who. That was my choice. That's the part one carry. The letter never mentioned the woman who raised me. It didn't need to. You were placed with someone who was told to keep quiet. I think she did her best. But this wasn't her choice. Not really. None of it was. Near the end of the letter, the writer begged for one thing, not forgiveness, but acknowledgement. If you're reading this, then maybe it means the truth didn't stay buried. Maybe it means you'll understand that silence doesn't always come from cruelty. Sometimes it's shame. Sometimes it's fear. But none of that makes it right. I read it twice. Then a third time. By the fourth, I wasn't angry anymore. I was exhausted. I looked at the photo again, the one of Rachel. The one where she's holding me. It hit me then. She never stopped looking. They just made sure no one was looking with her. And somehow, they erased her. But not all the way. She left a trail. And now, finally, I was ready to follow it. Cedar Falls hadn't changed much. The streets were still wide and slow. Coffee shops still used chalkboards. Kids still played barefoot in front yards like it was 1985. I didn't tell anyone I was coming. I just got in my car and drove, the box beside me like a heartbeat I couldn't ignore anymore. The public library was smaller than I remembered. The archives section was quiet, dusty, and stubborn, like it hadn't been touched in years. But tucked in the back of an old local history file, I found what I was looking for. Rachel Whitlow, obituary, 1988. Beloved daughter, artist, and mother. Survived by no listed family. Passed peacefully in her sleep. It wasn't true. She didn't pass peacefully. And she wasn't survived by no one. She had me. Next, I found the church where the funeral had been held. It was still open, same sign, same garden. The woman at the front desk was in her 60s and remembered the name. Sweet girl. Lived over by the river. I think the old house is still there. It was. Boarded up, half sunk into the ground like the past had tried to swallow it but couldn't quite finish the job. The mailbox still said, Whitlow. I stood on the porch for a long time. The wind moved through the broken screen door, and for a second, it felt like someone was standing just behind it. Watching. Waiting. I left a note under the mat, just in case. Then I drove to the county office and filled out a form for a formal request to reopen sealed birth records, citing possible identity discrepancy. It would take weeks, maybe months. But this time, I was ready to wait. That night, back at home, I opened the last item in the box. It was a small canvas, no larger than a notebook. A painting, childlike, but full of feeling. A field, a blue sky, and a woman holding hands with a little girl. On the back, in faded ink. For Emma. So you never forget you were loved. I didn't cry. I just sat with it. Because after everything, the silence, the secrets, the distance, I finally had proof that somewhere, someone had wanted me, had loved me, had fought for me. And no one could take that away again.